Goblin. What is a goblin? The vast majority of people imagine a little creature that hops around playing pranks while wearing a pointy hat with some very cute little shoes. Basically, a goblin could have that shape and that appearance. They are beings that can take many different forms according to belief. It does not mean that it is so. It is simply a belief. Goblins would be earth elementals, that is, just like the gnomes, trolls, and many other beings. They would inhabit the earth and navigate between two realms. They are not completely material. They are not completely spiritual. Unlike angels, for example, who are immaterial, essence, spirit. The goblin would be a mixture between two realms. At least, that is the belief that exists. The detail is that many people believe that the little goblins are friendly, pleasant, and funny. But how do you know if it is a little goblin or not? What is there? What is in that place? Is it really a little goblin? In some program, we have made a distinction between the domestic goblin and the field goblin, the wild goblin. And the basic difference is that one becomes accustomed to human beings and the other does not become accustomed. But that does not determine the reactions that may occur. I am going to present 3 experiences, only 3 experiences. I do not want to make this too long because when one speaks of these subjects, one should not talk too long. Because when one talks too long, the door remains open and things happen. And it is not strange that when we are talking about these subjects, 1 or 2 days later we begin to receive messages saying, "Sir, what is that in the background? Sir, what is that in that reflection?" And sometimes, only sometimes, it seems that someone is accompanying us. Hence that doors, when opened, should not be left open for a long time. For that reason, tonight we are going to tell you 3 stories that make us think that something that seemed to be a goblin was not. What could be more innocent than a little goblin attached to a toy? Some little goblin who really likes a toy? There are people who say yes, that for domestic goblins, one should set out sweets, set out a toy, and one should talk to them as if they were mischievous children, whom one sometimes has to scold. Fine, I do not doubt that belief. I am nobody to doubt a belief. But the following story makes me think something different. You see, Marcelo, from Chile, the Los Rios region, has always lived outside the city. The house in which he lives is about 20 kilometers from the nearest town, so it is a very beautiful area, extremely quiet, but very wild. And from always, in his house things have happened, they have perceived things, they have seen some little thing here, some little thing there, nothing serious. And here is where it becomes interesting. Some years ago, when he was about 16 years old, if I am right, that must have been around 2015 or 2016, he has a friend he gets along with very well. Well, the detail is that he likes to collect things. Marcelo does. His room is full of nice things. There is an electric guitar. There are several action figures he has been collecting. He is very careful, like a good collector. He does not like anyone touching his things, opening the packages, none of that. He also has some posters, a lot of materials there that have cost him a tremendous effort to obtain because they live very far away. So, back to the matter of the friend. He has this friend who is going through a rough patch. One day they are at school. That must have been the equivalent of secondary school. Finishing up, the friend is very sad, standing next to him telling him he has money problems. Man, what a shame. While they are chatting, that friend bounces a basketball he has in his hand over and over, until suddenly he looks at it and says, "I'll sell you my ball." "No, man, what are you saying? I'll lend you the money." Marcelo is a man of good heart, he's a good friend, so "I'll lend you the money." "No, no, I cannot accept it because I don't even know if I'll pay you back. I'll sell you my ball. It's a good brand. And yes, it's a good basketball. You can bounce it well, it's in good condition, it's not very used. And even though Marcelo is not a fanatic of playing basketball, he also plays sometimes. So at the end of the day, he ends up buying the ball from that friend who leaves very grateful. Or at least that is what it would seem, very grateful. Marcelo gets home, puts the ball in the wardrobe, in his closet, in the bedroom where he sleeps, and life goes on. A couple of weeks go by when Mom tells him something curious. Well, every time he leaves for school, he goes very early. Keep in mind he has to travel those 20 kilometers somehow. I don't know if on foot or by bus or how he does it, but he has to travel 20 kilometers, which means quite a journey. Every time he leaves around 6 in the morning, Mom has heard the ball move. Yes, Marcelo has been playing here and there. He comes back from school, takes off the uniform, whatever, takes his ball, bounces it a little, goes to dinner, this and that. Mom has that sound etched in her memory, and it's curious because as soon as she hears the front door close that Marcelo has left and is out on the street suddenly inside here, she hears the wardrobe open. It makes a peculiar sound. The two rooms are next to each other. The wardrobe opens, and immediately she hears the ball bounce as if it fell, but not only fall, bounce. Does that seem curious? It's not something dramatic, not something supernatural. At first, it would seem something cute, and in fact, it amuses Mom to think of goblins. Goblins. Goblins everywhere. Days pass, and that remains a topic of conversation. Marcelo keeps going to school, back and forth. But that evolves a little. Some days later, Mom tells him there has been a change. This time when Marcelo goes out and the front door is heard closing, Mom has clearly heard how the wardrobe doors have opened, but instead of hearing the bounce of that ball as she had heard the previous days, now what she has heard is as if someone jumped, as if a child jumped, and landed on the floor of Marcelo's room, and then started walking. Come on, it's an ordinary house, a country house, but it's not a rustic old wooden floor house. No, none of that, but you can hear how something heavy jumps and then walks. The most curious thing is that Mom has heard how that thing opens the door of Marcelo's room. At that point, it started to frighten her. The first time it caused her a lot of fear because she was in bed. Then she heard how it walked down a hallway and arrived in the kitchen. Outside, it is still dark. It has not yet dawned, so the entire world is silent. And they live far from the city, so you can hear any sound with great clarity. And in this case, you can clearly hear this. It opened the door of Marcelo's room, not only the wardrobe door, and it went out walking. She hears those steps. They are the steps of a small person. They are quick. She hears it head toward the kitchen and immediately hears cookware come out. Fall, move, someone is in the kitchen. That first time Mom heard it, she panicked, got very scared because she didn't know what it was. They had seen things before, shadows, odd noises, common in country houses. But this time, it was inside. After a while, that turned around, walked in the direction of Marcelo's room, entered, closed the door, and you can clearly hear it also close the wardrobe. And everything becomes calm again. A little goblin. Why not? The same goblin that played with the ball is now doing this. It likes to play with the kitchen pots. That first day was impressive, but as days went by, it was no longer so shocking to hear the doors open and that thing go downstairs. In fact, Marcelo's mother tells him, and soon they forget it. Marcelo has a bigger concern, a girl he likes. So he is more concerned with pleasing that polite, good-looking young woman than with the goblin matter, which he finds somewhat jocular. But that would change dramatically 2 weeks later, when Mom, as usual, hears the door close, Marcelo has left home, and immediately hears the closet door. She already recognizes the sounds. She hears the bedroom door. She hears the little footsteps. Those little footsteps toward the kitchen, but this time they do not reach the kitchen. This time the door of Mom's bedroom opens. She is in bed, and the moment the door opens, she freezes. She cannot move. She cannot do anything. The only thing she can do is look at the ceiling. She has been left as if paralyzed. Something prevents her from moving, and it is not only fear, but that thing is inside. Now it is inside her bedroom, and she clearly hears how it tries to climb onto her bed. And the only thing that occurs to Mom is to pray. They are a family that has been evangelical Christian for a long time. So the only thing that occurs to her is to begin to pray. Because although at first it seemed cute, This that is happening is now an attack, so she panics and begins to pray, until that thing turns around, walks away, and leaves. Mom is frightened and wants to know something. She is not the only one, because shortly before, one day, she had a visit. It is a house that has a kind of exterior terrace, a place where you can sit in the open air. Very pleasant, but it is near the window of Marcelo's bedroom. The visitors are an aunt and her daughter. They are having some maté, chatting, laughing, or coffee, I don't know. They are talking and laughing when suddenly the girl turns and says, "Is my cousin at home?" The mother replies, "No, daughter, he hasn't returned from school." Then who is playing with the ball? Because they are hearing someone bouncing it cheerfully. Someone is bouncing the ball. There is a moment of silence. The mother says, "No, there is no one. Sometimes the ball moves by itself." Of course, the girl and her mother laugh and say, "What's the matter with you, woman? Don't joke." And she tells them, "I'm not joking. Come with me." They go into Marcelo's room. The ball is on the floor. Marcelo's mother takes the ball, places it in the center of Marcelo's bed, and presses it down a little so it won't fall. The window is closed. They go out, close the door, go back outside and sit down. When they have barely sat down, they hear the ball bounce. No, it's not that it fell. Someone is playing with it. You can hear that hard bounce, it's not accidental. So they all run back to see what it is, and it turns out the ball is no longer on the bed, but over there. You can still see the small mark made in the bed when the mother tried to press it down. The aunt and the cousin run away. The following days, those ugly things went on. This, I climb on, I try to do something. Until one day, suddenly, another relative arrived. Nearby lives another relative who has a small boy, 5 years old. It makes Marcelo dizzy to think that this child will enter his room because there are so many things that have cost him work to get. If the kid breaks one, he will feel it. He also collects magazines, comics, and that a child should come and handle them. What if he breaks them? No, he can't conceive it. So it has always been forbidden to enter his room. And when Marcelo leaves, he locks it. That day, that relative arrives with the child. They sit down to have some coffee, to chat. When they realize it, the boy is gone. When they look for him, they find him inside Marcelo's room. The door was open. When Mom asks him, "Why did you go in?" "Because the door was open," and he has the ball in his hands. Suddenly, Marcelo's mother, and here I have a doubt, because Marcelo says she gives it to the child. The ball, she gives it to the child thinking Marcelo didn't need it. And I rather think she was thinking about what happens with the ball. I may be suspicious, but that thing had given them a lot of trouble. The fact is, the little boy was delighted with his ball. When Marcelo arrives and asks about it, Mom tells him, "Your little cousin came, and so he wouldn't be in your room. I gave him the ball." It doesn't occur to Marcelo that anything will happen. Of course it did. A few days later, the aunt calls Marcelo in distress. "Come quickly." They live close. He walks over and on arriving finds the child in tears, nose running, totally upset. The aunt is very upset too. When he asks, "What's happening?" she replies, "What's in this ball? What is there in this ball?" Marcelo says, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do." And then she explains. Since the ball arrived at the house, the boy talks to someone, does strange things, and will not separate from it. Well, what's strange about that? That day I was making lunch. The little boy, as usual, was close by at a small table we have near the dining room, a child's table where he sits to do his drawings, and next to him the ball. He is drawing when suddenly I feel something hug my leg, and when I look, it's the boy in panic, in a state of extreme terror. When the mother asks, "What's wrong, son? Why are you crying?" He, pointing toward the ball, says, "That bad boy is hitting me." When the mother looks, he has a slap mark on the side of his face, left there glowing red. The mother insists, "What boy?" "The ugly boy that's there is hitting me." But there is no boy there. There is the ball, and the nephew panics. Folks, this was not an active imagination. This was a child in panic. The mother picks him up, moves, and can still see how the ball moves by itself. She calls Marcelo. Marcelo takes the ball and goes home not knowing what to do, because he also feels that something comes with him. On arriving home, he does something intelligent. He takes a Bible, looks up Psalm 91, opens the Bible, and places the ball next to it. It is said that the Bible should always be open. It is the book that should always be open if you want to have your house calm. They are evangelicals, people of faith. So he realizes that that was not a goblin. In fact, they never believed so, because in the faith they practice there are no goblins. Those are demons. And that thing for some reason had come to his house. He does not know why. He does not know if his friend did not want the ball for the same reason, or perhaps that old acquaintance had some grudge he didn't know. It makes us think it was an object with a being of darkness attached. Something like so many stories we have heard, from the famous Warren stories with the Annabelle doll to so many more, in which an unclean spirit attaches to an object. Objects cannot be possessed, but it can attach. It is a work of sorcery, and it seems that was not fortuitous. Marcelo doesn't know why it happened, doesn't know why it was there. Later, he didn't see the friend and had no chance to ask. The ball is still there. It has been 9 years and he still has the ball, and it no longer does anything. And even when the Bible is closed and moved from place, nothing happens. But do you want me to tell you something? I share Marcelo's idea. That was not a goblin. That was a demon. To a goblin, it is all the same whether you open the Bible or not. They are not beings of darkness, they have no conflict, they are elemental beings. But this was different. This sought to harm. Proof of it was hurting the child. Marcelo was always worried about that and worried for his mother. Today things are calm, but one must always be careful and at the slightest sign, act. Now then, this other story has been shared with us by Anna. Anna currently lives in Medellín, Colombia, but about 10 years ago her family moved to a community maybe half an hour away known as Bello. It is a place that truly is beautiful. Very near are the mountains, lots of vegetation, very lovely views. They moved there because at the time there were several family members, father, mother, the father's sister, 2 other girls, the niece. There were several people and they needed a large space. In Medellín, getting a big house is practically impossible unless you are a magnate. So they went to Bello. On arriving there, they found a property with several bedrooms, 2 levels, and pleasant besides. A very pretty house. 10 years ago, a very pretty house. However, from the first day, Anna felt something strange in that house. Just walking down the main hallway you felt this, that you were being watched, that you were being followed, as if someone were there. It was a strange feeling, but as time passed, it got worse. If at first you felt there was someone watching you, someone following you, this house really grew in that sensation, to the point of not feeling safe inside the house. You entered and felt the need to go out. It was strange. Over that time, there were several situations. At some point, the mother saw a child inside the house, of course not a living being. It was a presence that disappeared and appeared again. There were other small things. Suddenly, someone would turn on the light for you or open the gas valve, which is very dangerous. Doors would be shut. You would hear someone running by, someone talking. The house was full of noises. It was unusual. They did some spiritual cleansings with herbs, with holy water, with those sorts of things, but although it attenuated the effects, the feeling of not being safe remained and was constant. Something she remembers is that every time she entered the house she needed for them to take something out, and in fact that something Mom believed was a goblin. She insisted that whatever it was had to be taken out, and this generated many problems because it bothered her in particular. With the other women of the family it would mess up their hair, uncover them, yank the blankets, things like that. But with her, it would pull her, bother her. It was such an unusual feeling, especially as if it were against her for wanting it out of the house. There came a time when she began to ask permission to enter her own house. She no longer lived there. Over time, she stays living in Medellín, has her own family, but when she visits the house, to enter, she asks permission, and when she leaves, she gives thanks for being allowed, because otherwise nights can be very uncomfortable. Noises, situations. There is something that has caught her attention. These noises up on the rooftop. The roof is covered in tiles, and it seems that someone walks up there, but there is no way to get up. That is not possible. There is no way. This thing on the roof produced some very strange effects. Suddenly, you would begin to hear someone walking there, and the temperature would change dramatically. It would become very hot, but in a moment it would turn incredibly cold. Even when outside there had been no significant change in temperature here, suddenly it changed. And the worst part was that those noises began to move the tiles walking. When they began to pray Psalm 91, that would stop. To goblins, it is all the same whether you pray or not. This was not a goblin, and it would become even more evident. About 6 years ago, the father became gravely ill. He suffered a stroke that left him paraplegic. He could not move. He could not speak. The only thing he could do was move his head a little and his eyes. When asked something, he replied by blinking. "Are you all right, Dad?" "Yes." Or, "Are you all right, Dad?" "No." "Does something hurt?" "Yes." That sort of thing. The illness was terrible, and he was a terrible man. Anna has described life with her father as a very, very unfortunate life. A violent, aggressive man, with many vices, who cared little for his own family and who got involved in very bad things. She tells us that part of the problem seemed to be him, this problem in the house. One afternoon, he is there in his bed, lying as always. He cannot move. It is after that stroke. Paralyzed. One of the daughters comes near to see if he needs anything when she sees the father has his gaze fixed on a point, but the expression on his face is an expression of fear, of something being there. So that daughter asks, "Dad, are you seeing something?" And he answers, "Yes." "Is it something ugly?" "Yes." "Is it something evil?" "Yes." That daughter starts to pray. It is the only thing that occurs to her, and a while later the dad rests. But that was there, and it seemed to be associated. But not only that. When the father died, shortly after he died, things started to happen. In fact, at the same moment when the father dies, when he is dying, the dogs around the house began to howl in a horrible way. There was a very strange wind, and there was something there, someone standing there, the very Satan himself standing there, because that is what they felt, a presence that caused terror. Time passes, father is dead, 2 children have gone far away. Now only mother, the father's sister, that is, the aunt-in-law, and a daughter live there. The house is almost empty, but these things continue. And when Anna visits, it is very uncomfortable to be there, and that's when that happened. One night they go to sleep, and she prefers to sleep with the sisters, the aunt, or the cousin, or whoever, but not sleep alone. So they settle in, chatting happily, when suddenly, in the middle of that solitude and the silence of dawn, they begin to hear something climb up and walk on the tiles, and they hear tiles being turned over, as if looking for something. And in the house there is a light well, a shaft that lets light pass to the lower level where there is another dwelling. Light passes through, and there are fiberglass plastic tiles. They are transparent. They hear how it steps there, as if it will break, and in panic they truly begin to pray. That night, the whole night, it was that. The temperature changes, the sounds, something was there. Something at times came down, as if to approach. Well, at dawn they go out to see what it is, and via a ladder and some things they can climb up, and indeed the tiles are all turned over, and there is something more. On that light shaft where they heard the steps, there are some prints, as if greasy hands had pressed there. But understand that this is not a resistant thing. If someone stepped on it or leaned on it, it would break. But this is not broken. There are simply those prints, and those prints also reveal elongated hands. They are not human, and there are no monkeys in that area. They do not come so low. They took some photos. You can barely make it out, hard to see, but there are some very odd prints. I will put a photo now, and, well, that is what happened, but it would not be the only thing. One weekend, Anna's daughter and a little niece go there, and they make them a kind of cabin night, meaning in the living room they put up a makeshift tent, and there the two girls stay chatting about their things and so on. But at midnight both girls woke up, ran to the mother's bedroom. Not babies, they were 8, 9, ran in tears. In a panic attack because inside their little tent where they had improvised that camping, there was a child of strange appearance. It was a sort of shadow. You could not distinguish more. It was something dark, and when they looked closer they could make out a kind of horns on the head. Both girls panicked and never again stayed there. Now they are a little older. The house in general has had that characteristic, and there have been other incidents. And it is not the only place. In this site, horrible things have happened. One of the neighbors, with whom friendship had been struck, the mother left the house. She was someone who rented an adjacent property, a house next door, and they had become friends in very little time. But at the same time, she left, in little time to make friends and little time staying there. As she was leaving, she said goodbye, saying, "I cannot live here. I don't know what there is in this place, but I cannot live here. I cannot sleep. Every night is a nightmare, madness. I am leaving." And it is that in that site in the 1980s, in the heat of that drug war and horrible things, there were many crimes. Down below, in a small ravine near the hill, they threw the dead without shame or glory. Every day there were dead thrown there. In fact, there, in that same house, they would come to learn that back in that time, in the 1980s, a woman had lived there who had businesses related to the underworld with the mafia. At some moment there was a conflict. They came looking for her, and there, inside the house, they killed her. They killed her children, did horrors, and took the bodies that they threw far away. No one had told them that. But moreover, it seems she also did witchcraft. In this site, very strange things have happened. Being here means being in a portal. She does not usually travel much there. She prefers they come visit her because being there causes her great fear. And it is so big what happens there, so strong, that some time ago her sister suffered a very serious health problem and was at death's door. And do you want to know something? The mother saw her there in that house, saw the spirit calling her. In fact, Anna also saw it, as if the house served as a portal. She survived, fortunately. She came through. She is still a bit delicate, but during the death crisis, as if this house pulled. Do you remember what I have told you of these gravitational presences that attract and retain? Recently, when we spoke of some haunted houses, for example, the Conjuring one, it was said there was this that attracted. Well, it seems to be the same. So the original idea they had, that there was a little goblin, could not be more wrong. What has been described is a presence that seems demonic. What was done in that house? Good question. But, as is known, in many of those places where there has been mafia, drug trafficking, trafficking in people, many cases of violent crime, there is also a direct relationship with groups that could be considered satanic. What was there in that house? Good question. And it is still there, clearly. Some are stronger, some are not. If right now an outsider arrives, it's possible they will have a very bad time. But it is definitely not a goblin. Now then, this other story has to do with several aspects you should keep in mind. The first is that if a person has already opened doors, it is as if you were already carrying a sign. "Hi, it's me," for the dark. A person who has never opened a door, a person spiritually healthy, strong, has nothing to fear. A person who has gone into this world of the dark, who has opened doors, who has called, who has participated in things, already has in itself a kind of stigma, a kind of mark, and can be besieged terribly. Franco shares a story from Argentina. I cannot give more details. He has especially asked us to keep certain things unmentioned. But this happens about 15 years ago. At that time, a boy of about 16, 17, eager to eat the world, with enormous curiosity, like the curiosity of many who will accompany me tonight. He has two great friends. One is a relative, and the other is a pretty girl. They are good friends. Don't imagine anything. He's not looking for this girl romantically. She is his friend. He has great affection for her. They grew up together. The other relative does seem to have some special interest in her. But anyway, they are three friends who have been in many adventures. Let me tell you, they have gone to old houses, abandoned houses, to look for ghosts. They have done the Ouija thing on several occasions. They often watch movies, read things. They have done little things like sneaking into a cemetery at night. You see where I'm going. These people already had the lamp lit over them. Look, I like the darkness. So I go on. One day the relative arrives, greets him, and says, "I've been told something incredible." "What did they tell you?" "Do you remember so-and-so, the classmate?" "Yes, I remember him." "Have you noticed he didn't come?" "Yes. Well, I hadn't noticed, but Franco didn't really have him on his radar. But it turns out that friend hadn't been coming for days, and when he finally came, in the chat, when they asked, 'Why haven't you come?' he revealed he had lived something very strange. He found a head." "What do you mean, a head?" "Yes, a head all tattooed, very strange, in a cemetery, and since then, strange things have happened to me." Franco's mind immediately jumps. Let's go see. That friend had given details, where, how, when, etc., as if he wanted them to go. I don't know why, but it seems that was not a coincidence, like so many times, like when someone makes a pact and has to deliver someone. It feels like something of that sort. But these were kids, crazy, hungry for the world, curious about the occult and the mysterious. Franco gets the idea to go. The friend, the girl, doesn't like it, going to that again, and what if something happens? What the absent classmate had described was that ugly things had happened after seeing that. The description: the head was inside a mausoleum, one of those multiple tombs where you go down some stairs. Above there is a slab or something, but then there is a little door and you go down. Inside, in some part, was that head. So Franco is keen to go. He convinces the friend. She is not keen, feels something bad is going to happen. The other relative confesses he is afraid, but doesn't want the girl to think he is afraid, given his romantic interest. In the end, they accept and go. The classmate had given the details, but that cemetery is very guarded. Private guards patrol the aisles and police are at the gate. So it is not easy to enter, and at night less so. Also, with the idea that strange things were going on there. Better by day. They prepare everything, identify the place, plan to go on a Saturday afternoon, in daylight, so they can go, look around, and that's it. No one will suspect because the friends always meet on Fridays. The police will not bother them because they are not entering illegally. They are just going to visit a grave, and that's it. It takes them a while to find the tomb. When they are there, yes, it seems to be this one, and all right. According to what the classmate had described, one must descend the steps, open the door, and enter. They don't know what is inside. So Franco proposes something, that the relative and the friend go in, and he will wait outside in case there is a problem, and will watch that a guard doesn't come up and catch them and all hell breaks loose. The friend says no, that she doesn't feel like it. She has the sense something bad will happen. He insists, "Nothing will happen. I'll be right here." Franco would regret that, and still regrets having convinced them. He feels guilty. He wishes they had never gone in. But anyway, at a certain moment he convinces them. The relative and the pretty friend open the door and go in while he keeps watch outside. Careful, not to trip. There are several steps. Sometimes these crypts, these mausoleums with 8 tombs, 4 on one side and 4 on the other, well, they can be deep. When they go in, he keeps looking this way and that, making sure no one is coming when suddenly the cousin appears, eyes wild, his whole expression, horror. Please help her. Please help her. He doesn't know what happened. Maybe she fell, maybe she caught on something. He quickly goes down and finds the pretty friend in a strange posture, like crouched, strange, but at the same time with a vacant stare. He touches her shoulder, says, "What's wrong?" She doesn't answer anything, only long tears streaming down her cheeks. She is cold, stiff, completely immobile. He shakes her and she keeps staring. She is completely catatonic, and that is when he turns and in a corner he can make out what he first thinks is the head. He cannot know more because it is dark, he cannot distinguish much, only that there is something there like a person's head with many tattoos, without lips, with some bits like small stones stuck on. It is very odd, makes me think that was some work of something, or what someone might have thought a goblin, because it was there and looking at him and he is looking at it, and that is when he reacts. For an instant he places himself in front of the friend and starts to shout, shake her, until she reacts. Somehow she reacts, and he manages to get her out of that place. But the girl won't stop crying. She cannot walk. Between the relative and him they lift her and carry her, and suddenly a policeman appears and says, "Hey, what's wrong with her?" "Nothing. She's overcome because we came to see her mom is grave, and look how she got. We're taking her home." The policeman turns and keeps doing his job without paying more attention. But do you want me to tell you something? Life changed forever from that moment on. Changed dramatically and horribly. The pretty girl began to have nightmares every night, horrible ones, that made her wake up drenched in sweat and tears, unable to sleep again. These nightmares ranged from that strange head watching her, to figures, shadows, something standing next to her. She perceived beings around her. It became madness. The relative also fell ill from the shock. It hit him so hard he couldn't go to school more than a week, but the friend took a month to return to school. That tells you how serious it was. And it did not go away. She kept seeing those things, and not only seeing them, she felt them. The relative, too. The relative began to sink in a strange whirl, like a demonic circumdatio, as if they were surrounded. The pretty girl ended up with a psychiatrist, ended up hospitalized, ended up in therapy. The mother asked them never to speak of those things again and not to get near her daughter for the damage they had done. What the hell had they seen in that tomb? What was that damned head? Only God knows, but it seemed to have gone with them. The relative, too, and the very Franco lived it. This besieged him, and he sought help everywhere. Let me tell you, the phenomenon was so violent that he began to go to church to confess, to ask for help, and all that. And sure, it's very likely they called him crazy, as often happens. Until one day he said, "I'm fed up," and paid it no more attention. He did not pay it more attention. It keeps appearing. In fact, it is still there. But the pretty girl could not cope. It affected her enormously. A year after that visit, she asked that they meet again. They needed to talk it through. It was the last time it was mentioned. They could not describe what they had seen, could not say what it was. But she was besieged by this. If she managed to sleep 5 minutes, on waking that head was looking at her. But sometimes it was the head, and sometimes it was something else at the foot of her bed, to the point that upon waking she did so looking at the mattress so as not to see what was in front of her bed. That worked for a while, but later the phenomenon changed and appeared wherever. Yes, she ended up in therapy, hospitalized, and the relative too, because the relative began to suffer terrible things. He sought death by his own hand, yes, but also in other ways. Let me tell you here, phenomena began to happen, like walking, and suddenly coming to when you are in the middle of the street and about to be run over. Miraculously, something saves you. But he saw death several times, very close, because this seems to suddenly take control and lead you exactly as a demon would, finish you off, hurt you, break you. That seems to be all that is sought here. Where had that head come from? Good question. He doesn't know. He doesn't think it was criminals doing something there. It was there, simply there. In fact, a little later he went to a police office to say, "Look, we passed here and saw there was a head." They went to look and found nothing. This wasn't something physically there. I don't think so. And if it was physically there, it was an object destined to something. It was part of a rite. After that, they have not seen each other again. Much time has passed and there has been no contact. The relative has been hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital. He now has a family, but his life doesn't recover. The pretty girl never recovered from what she lived. She has continued in treatments, has sought help here, there, and there. The only one who more or less is moving forward is him, and in part because he has broken with it, has strengthened himself, has refused to accept it. The siege continues, but he is stronger, and here comes the advice he leaves for everyone watching tonight. First, do not play with what you do not understand. If you open a door, you are marked. You could not close it, and you will not be able to close it. It is a myth that you say goodbye and give thanks and close the Ouija. That is nonsense. What you brought, period. The serious problem is not that they enter, but that you made yourself vulnerable. You broke your protection. It is very simple. At the moment you break the law that forbids necromancy, contacting, seeking the dead. At the moment you break that, you have already broken your protection. You no longer have it. Your guardian angel, bye-bye. So you are alone. Do not play with that. Do not open it. Do not break, because then you are exposed. And of course also, do not get into where you should not. There are dangerous things out there. Sometimes they look like little goblins, cute, with a little hat and shoes, and they pull pranks. And how do you know that is what it is? How do you know it is not something impersonating? Be careful. Do not get into what you should not because it is possible that you cannot get out.